All right. All right. What's up, everyone? This is Isaac from Hunter Smash Fitness coming to you once again with my highly esteemed co-host, John, over at My Block Strongest Man. And today we have the phenomenal stone maker, Tampa Atlas Stones. Who has an actual name? Do you prefer to be called Aaron or just Tampa Atlas? Or
Aaron is good. That's great.
Okay. All right. So everyone, we refer to him as Aaron on the channel here then. So maybe just starting off, how did you get into stone making?
Yeah, so I started lifting at 14. So at this point, I'm 33, almost 20 years ago. Wasn't necessarily strongman at the time. It was more just like general lifting, bodybuilding, stuff like that. Around 18, 19, I really started to get into strongman, wanted to do that type of stuff. And that's when I ordered my first mold. So I started making stones, really just for myself, different sizes, stuff like that. And then a couple of years ago, I was lifting, kind of looked down. I'd been thinking for a while, like, what could I do to get some extra money? You know, just something on the side, something to, something to do. And it just kind of light bulb went off. My wife thought it was a great idea too. And we just kind of decided we were going to start doing it and see what we could do with it, how far we could take it. I knew at the time I didn't want to do just plain stones. I wanted to do something different that hadn't been done before. I didn't know to what extent I could do that necessarily, but I knew there had to be different things that could be done with these things that hadn't been done, in the past. So that's kind of how it got started.
And how long ago was the company founded?
On Instagram, about a year and 3 months ago. In total, about 2.5 years. So the first little bit was marketplace, Craigslist, OfferUp, stuff like that. And I tried to stay off social media. I'm not really a social media guy, or at least I wasn't at the time. I really wanted no part of that side of it. But I knew that in order to take it to where I needed or wanted to take it, I had to do it. I had to, create a page, at least on, in my mind, Instagram was the best one for something like this. Create a page and just kind of dive in and see what I could do.
Interesting. And you do a lot of custom stuff, as you mentioned. Is it made to order, or are there certain particular styles that you sell as sort of standard styles?
Right. So it's all pretty much made to order. I do have a running log of, ideas and stuff. I keep a huge list of things I'd like to see happen. So when someone reaches out and they, want a custom stone, but they don't necessarily know exactly what they like, I have kind of an idea of, what are you into? This is kind of what I was thinking, that type of thing. So, that helps, having ideas, but it's mainly from customers. They reach out and say, hey, do you think you could do something like this, like some type of crazy idea? And I don't think I've ever really said no to a custom thing. I just kind of say, yep, I'll figure it out. Let's see what we can do. And just kind of dive in and go from there and see what I can come up with. So I don't like to say no. I think I've only said no once, and it was to a 500-pound plus stone. It was when I first started. I didn't know if I could fit that much weight inside a mold. And I regret saying no that one time. I wish I would have just said yes and, figured it out. And yeah, I don't like to say, I'd rather just go ahead and do it, because I know once I dive into it, I along the way, I'll figure it out and I'll be able to get it done.
Interesting. Have you ever done any brand partnerships? Because Isaac, you know what I'm thinking? Tampa Atlas Stones would be a perfect partner for Belt Fed Strength, because they're custom as well. Like it's like a perfect Christmas gift for a strongman, like custom belt, custom stone.
I could see the mermaid on there too, or the merman. I could see that logo. I could see that logo on a stone, maybe with some scales down the side or something like that. That'd be a cool one. I'd definitely be into it. I haven't done anything like that, no partnerships or anything, but I think I'm kind of getting to the point, hopefully, where I'm not as small as I've been. I hope that I can get to that point where I can do things like that, and people would be interested in partnering up and doing some of those things. So that'd be cool.
Interesting. Jump on in, Isaac. I think I cut you off.
Yeah, I was going to ask too. So maybe walk us through your process for making stones a little bit too, because all of yours look immaculate. And I know I helped one of my friends make some a little bit ago, and you must have a trick for like coating the something, because like the ones that we made were all pocked and just they were ugly. So maybe walk us through a little bit of that.
So a lot of that has just been so much trial and error. Everything matters, down from the mold you use, what type, how you set up your mold, what spray you use, what silicone spray. You'd be surprised, like from brand to brand, how big of a difference that makes. So, finding one that works well for you and figuring that part out. Even consistency of concrete is a huge deal. Making sure that it's the right consistency before you pour it in every single batch. Making sure you're getting all the air bubbles out by hitting it, with the hammer and all of that. It's a pretty lengthy process for somebody who hasn't done it before, but the whole thing with me is I try to learn something every time I go out and do something. So at this point, I kind of have it down where it's pretty fast. It's not, a long process, but there are tons of little tiny minute details that, they all add up to making a really smooth, nice stone. Because if you're not doing those things, like you said, it'll be misshapen. It'll have, air pockets all over the stone. Even the sealer that we use is ridiculously nice, but that was trying different sealers, constantly trying to see what works, and then finally coming up with one that, we really, really loved. The tacky, sticks to it just like glue, so even those little details, they matter a lot. But it's just, playing with it and figuring it out, just like anything else, trying to, do trial and error, see what works, see what doesn't. But yeah, the little stuff matters with these for sure.
And we have a comment asking us to ask you about your tacky as well. So do you make your own tacky, or is she referring to something different?
I do. I make my own tacky. That was a whole beast in and of itself to figure out, because with this stuff, there's not many people that make it, and nobody wants to tell you how to make it, obviously, because once they disclose how to make it, then there will be tons of different ones on the market, and I'm sure that's not what they want. So I did reach out to 2 people overseas and ask them. They would not tell me. They would not even give me a hint, nothing. So I just kind of bought some that I liked. I tried to figure it out the best I could. I went online. I searched everywhere I could to see if there are any forums. And even the one that there was information on was taken down. So it's not like this is easy to figure out, what goes in. But I did finally figure out what the main ingredients were. And then from there, I had to figure out how much of each ingredient, would give me what I wanted. And I finally, with my wife's help, my wife was a huge help with that one. She really did kind of take over that and help me figure it out. But I think the product that we have is a really, really good product, especially for the Florida heat. It is something that most tackies you have to warm up with like a heat gun or a blow dryer just to get it malleable enough to use. And this stuff straight out of the jar, you don't need that. You can just kind of scoop it, spread it on, and it stays on your hands, and it seems to be pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you some of that, a question about temperature, because there was an issue with that at World's Strongest Man. So do you make different grade tackies, like a colder weather one and a warmer weather one, or is it just one?
So it's one for now, and I'm just happy I figured out the one. Honestly, I don't know how these people are figuring out different tacky for different, weather situations and all of that. I've tried to play with it and see, what I could come up with, and I haven't really cracked that code yet. But hopefully at some point I'll be able to figure that out. But the one that I have now, I haven't really even tested it too much in cold weather. I don't know where I'd find that here in Florida to even do that. But the weather that we have here, and I know it's in Japan, it's over there, it's in several other states, and the feedback has been really, really good so far. So, hopefully we're able to figure out some different ones. But for now, I'm just happy we got that one figured out, because it was not easy to, crack that code.
Yeah. As Isaac knows, I'm a great networker, and I have a strongman friend who's also a PhD in chemical engineering, Mike Minkler, if you're watching, buddy. So if you ever want to expand, Aaron, let me know. I'll hook you up.
Definitely. Yeah, me and him can chat anytime. I'd definitely be willing to do that.
Yeah, Mike's a super nice guy. You would love him.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. We should collect a couple samples and see if we can break down exactly what they're made from and go from there. But
yeah, it's really weird too, because you think about allergies and stuff like that. I mean, it's one of those things that there's no listing on any of the products as far as what's inside of it. So it's really just a kind of a strange thing. And it, like I said, it was not easy to figure out what all the main ingredients were. And then, how much of each I needed to get what I desired out of it. But that it's under lock and key, apparently. Everybody keeps it a secret.
So how many skin cells did you lose testing out different recipes?
Oh man, it's not even that. It's my kitchen. I have tacky all over my kitchen. There's tacky on my floors, on my counters, on my stove. I was finding tacky places for weeks. But it's great. I mean, even just having tacky to use for myself. I mean, with the pricing of that, and how much I was going through doing stones every other week, it's nice to just be able to head to the kitchen and whip some up if I wanted to, and bring it out to the garage and go from there. But yeah, it definitely gets all over the place, and it's not easy to clean up either. That's for sure.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask too. So maybe what's the heaviest stone that you've made, and what's your favorite stone that you've made so far?
So I think the heaviest was around 460, 470, somewhere in there. And my favorite stone so far, it's actually a set that went out to Texas. It's an acid set. It has like blue and brown different acid. One of them's like a swirl, kind of like a target. It kind of ripples down from there. It's 350, 400, and 450 pound set. And just the way that set came out with the silver stenciling, like the Longhorn logo and the Western font that I did. I don't know why that set just, I love that set. Just the acid, the way it took and all of that. He actually ordered a, I don't know if you're into Harry Potter or, watching any of that stuff, but yeah, that one right there. But he actually had the golden snitch stone as well in that order for his wife. So that whole order, I just loved everything about those.
You know which one I really like is, Isaac, if you're on IG, it's not as elaborate as some of these other ones, but the black glitter one is really cool.
Yeah, those
That's it right there. Like it looks plain until you really look at it and you're like, oh, it's not the polish of every other one. That's really cool.
Right. I struggled with that one too, to get a good video, because it just doesn't do it justice. In the sun, in the light, it really it pops way more than what it shows on camera on Instagram. It really does. It's a really pretty one.
So is that still sealed on top, or is it like more grippy because of that finish?
So that one's still sealed. Yeah. Okay. So with the glitter, I mean, even with the sealer, over time, you might have some of that poke through, I guess, and it might feel a little gritty, down the line, but they're all smooth. They're all sealed. So there shouldn't be any issue with that type of stuff.
That's sweet. Once I'm strong enough to lift a heavy Atlas stone, I got to have you make me one.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Let me know. What would you get if you had to pick something custom? What would you go with?
Probably my logo, my Block Strongest Man, where I'm lifting a recliner chair.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Do that.
I was gonna say, I think my favorite one is the beach ball one. Just because I'd love to take it to the beach out here and toss it around and just see the looks from people.
Yeah, that's what everybody said in the comments on that one. Somebody actually said that they had a Atlas stone on their beach that somebody brought out and just left, and they had to get somebody to come out and actually remove it and all of that. And the guy ended up getting a free stone. He ended up being able to take it with him because nobody else could, pick it up and take it home. So
if anyone else finds an Atlas stone on a beach somewhere, let me know, because I would love to go and collect a couple stones.
Yeah, because you're in Florida now, right?
Yeah, I just moved down to Tampa here. So, a month ago yesterday, I think, or something like that. So we're brand new out here. We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyone who comes across that problem, you have an Atlas stone on a beach you can't move, you call Isaac and Justin Langhout. They'll help you out.
Yeah, they'll help you out.
And Katie says the Bama one is hers.
Bama,
sorry.
Yeah, the Crimson Tide one. Yeah.
Where is that? Was it up towards the top?
Yeah, right there.
Nice. That's sweet.
Nice. That's a good looking one.
It is. The stuff I lift in the forest looks nothing this nice, let me tell you.
Yeah, the natural stones. Yeah, that one was hard because of the combo of colors, the white, and then having to be so careful with the crimson, so there's no bleeding and stuff like that. That one was not necessarily an easy stone, but it came out really clean. It looks, really, really nice. So happy with it.
Yeah, all of your stones have an amazing finish on them. I mean, I was going through here before we brought you on. I was like, all of your stones just look immaculate. So do you do all the artistry yourself, or do you have someone else that helps you with that, or how does that work?
No, yeah, we basically, my wife does help me quite a bit, especially with, getting the stencils so tight on these things so that they don't bleed is a really big deal with those. So having a second person to help with getting those tight, and then the other person can spray and stuff like that. So she does help me a lot. But we do everything. We do all of the artistry. We do all of the stenciling. We do all of the paint and the acid and all of that stuff.
So now, given that they're custom orders, you're having to build stencils every time, right? So are you like X-Acto knifing? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, so we have a system on the computer where we can actually, with our machine, we can make any type of custom stencil that anybody wants. So if they have a logo for their business, if they have any type of imagery, any type of, we even do different font. There's a website that I can go to. I can search through and see, everything that's out there and what would fit the stone the best. And I kind of just go through, type in what I'm looking for it to say, see what I like, and then I can save that to the computer. I can, make a stencil from there, do however big I want it to be, and then we can print it off and basically go put it on the stone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it actually reminds me of the cry cut machine that my wife uses. Like, she's made ornaments and stuff for Christmas. But what material are you putting in the machine to make the stencils?
So it's basically just like a cardstock type of stuff.
Okay.
So, you can do vinyl, and that's something that we haven't even really gotten into yet. It's been an idea. We could do some type of, vinyl on these things, but when you do that and it's stuck to the stone and then you're putting tacky on it and putting pressure and lifting it, I don't know how durable that would be, but that would be something that would be cool to at least test out and try. And then something else we're going to do is try to do actual stenciling inside the stone and, stick it to the mold, do custom stuff like that. So then when you take it off, it's actually imprinted into the stone instead of, being painted on afterwards. So it's a lot of different stuff that we're toying with and trying to figure out, what we can do better, what we can do next, always trying to, improve and come out with the next, cool thing.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say, working construction, I know I helped my dad do several like acid dye concrete floors for people who have way more money than I do. But and some of them wanted some kind of cool designs with this acid dye on the concrete. Have you looked into doing anything like that, or would that degrade like the sealant or anything on the stones?
Well, that's basically what we do. It's pretty much similar stuff. So, we get that stuff and we kind of just go to work on what we want it to look like as far as like a pattern or design or something like that. And then we just take our stuff and we apply it the way we think that it'll look the best. A lot of times what I'll try to do is blend different colors together, and that creates its own, cool different thing that's not either colored, kind of morphs it together. And the concrete takes it completely different every time. So you never kind of know what you're really going to get. But I think that's one of the coolest parts is you could put something on and it just comes out ridiculous and looks, really, really nice. But the acid, it doesn't affect the stone at all as far as, grip, feel, anything like that. And then once the sealer's applied, it's the same as any other sealed stone.
That's cool. I was looking at the shark one you did. I'd be afraid to grab it on that side. I don't want to get bitten.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, the chain chomp from Mario Kart.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's the little guy that's chained up, and then when you're driving by, he tries to jump out and get him. So yeah, some of these things, I mean, a lot of them too, it's just day-to-day stuff. I'll see something and I'll be like, that would be super cool. I'll put it on the notepad, and then, luckily somebody will reach out and say, hey, I want to get some custom stone. I don't know what I want. And then, I'm able to kind of tell them what I'm recommending, and, it kind of works out because I get tons of inspiration just watching stuff, seeing stuff, and it'll just be like, that should be the next one. So,
and then in addition to design, how do you work with a customer to come up with what the weight should be?
So that's really all on them. Whatever they think that they can lift, pretty much. I have to talk a lot of people down sometimes because they think that just because they can deadlift, let's say 400, 500 pounds, they can lift a stone that weighs, 400, 500 pounds. And it is not the case at all. Not at all. I mean, I try to start people at like maybe the 40% range as opposed to, the upper range of what they can actually deadlift. So that does come into play because I don't want people to get a stone that just sits in their yard and they can't even use, because then they're going to be soured on it. They don't want to order stones anymore. They don't want to lift stones anymore. So I try to steer them in the right direction as much as I can. But usually they just tell me what they want, and, we kind of go with it.
Yeah, because I mean, if I just look at my numbers, right, like I'm not a strong man competitively at all, but my biggest deadlift was probably, I don't know, 315. The biggest stone I ever lifted was 210, and that was
Right.
natural. That was natural. So I would imagine an Atlas stone's even harder, and it would be less.
Right. Yeah, Atlas stones are completely different, especially when there's no tacking involved. It is a bear to get a grip on. But yeah, it's usually the younger guys that will come and they'll say, hey, I can deadlift this, or they'll message me out of the blue like, hey, how much for a 450-pound stone? And it's like, let's pump the brakes. Let's maybe, I even say sometimes they can stop by and try to lift, something and see what they can do first, because it's just it's a whole new ball game. It's not as easy, not nearly as easy as a deadlift or a natural stone or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, unless Maxime Boudreau's on the other end of the phone when he's talking to you, you don't want to start with a 450 stone if you never lifted one before.
No, and you'd be surprised. Like I said, it's usually the younger guys coming out of high school or college. I've had a few of them. They've wanted some pretty big stones, and I've had to talk them, and they've been thankful once they've been talked down, because they realize how different it is, and it's not, as easy as they thought. But I figure that's the least I can do. I don't want to sell them something, even though it'd be more money for me. It's not what I want to do. I want them to get the product and actually be able to use it, and get some, experience with it and stuff like that. So
yeah, you want to build up the technique, right? And if you're trying to lift so, near your max or beyond it, you're not going to be able to focus on technique at all.
Right. Yeah, it's just a whole different lift. Really, I like to get people into sandbags too, because I don't know if you know, like, Wesley Claiborne.
Yeah, of course. Well, not personally, but we're aware of him. Yeah.
Yeah, just like the movement that he does with sandbags. I do those every other week, but sandbags are a huge help for stones. I mean, if they can get into something like that and do something, get some sandbags that are manageable for them, and at least get like the movement down, and then I get them a stone that will fit kind of what they're able to do, and they'll be, in the right direction at that point. So that's usually what I try to do, is give them, a little bit of some tips and stuff like that, but definitely getting the right size stone to start is a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think stone shape makes a big difference. Sorry, Isaac, for cutting you off, but like for example, like if I lift a stone that's 120 pounds and I can almost lock it out pressing it, I have a 96-pound stone that's just as hard because it's really jagged. And like shape makes a big difference because I can't get the balance the right way. So a perfectly spherical stone would be another totally different story.
Well, the diameter comes into play too. So if you have let's say a 400-pound stone that's a 22-inch as opposed to a 400-pound stone that's a 20-inch, that makes a really big difference. I don't think people really realize how much even an inch on an Atlas stone can make. It makes a pretty huge difference. Even with the blocks, my earlier blocks, my dimensions were way out of whack. I was trying to do what I could to reach the weight and what I thought would work, and some of them just came out way too large. So what I tried to do is, I know you guys had John Mauser on the yeah. So I try to use the dimensions for the Mauser block because those are the blocks that are used in all the competitions anyway, and then just altering obviously the thickness. But even, I mean, that comes into play and is important too. I mean, if you have a block that's just way too big to get in the right position on your chest, then good luck getting your hands in the right position to press it overhead. It's just all of that matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that speaking of like picking up stones compared to deadlift and everything, it's been interesting because I think I lucked out because I have a ridiculously long wingspan, and so stone lifting has always come a little bit easier for me. I think partly because of that, but I've had so many guys come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I have a 400-pound deadlift. How heavy of a stone do you think I could do?" Be like, it doesn't really translate that way. And I've been thinking of putting a video together to talk about it just so I can finally be like, all right, here, watch this. I hash it out, break it down for you a little bit. But I was going to say, so do you do any steel work at all, or do you just do concrete stones?
I haven't really done any steel work to sell, but it's definitely something that is on the table to potentially do in the future. These things have kept me really busy so far, and I've got, 2 kids, I got a wife, got a job, got a house. So that part of it haven't really been able to dive into as much as I would like in order to produce a product that's nice enough to actually sell. So if I'm ever able to do that, then that's definitely something that I would be interested in. And I don't even know necessarily what that would be. Maybe blocks, but that's been done before. The hustlefuls have been done before. So it would maybe have to be something that's completely new that I could come up with and, figure out. But that's not off the table. I would definitely be interested in, doing that someday.
Have you had very many stones that just have not turned out at all how you wanted, and you ended up having to throw them away or something and start over from scratch? Or
So not from the custom side of it. So usually if I can see something that I'd like to do in my head and I have like an idea of what it would take to get to that point, I'm pretty much batting 1,000 at those. I haven't really messed up on the custom side. There have been a few that I'll give you a good example. I was making a 20-inch last week, and I have a tire, which I usually don't like to use tires because they sometimes create a lip. But I have a tire that's been really, really good, and it's just really, really pliable. So it doesn't do that. It sinks really well, and the stone fits in there perfectly. But the tread ripped. So the tread ripped while it was setting. So everything was perfectly fine as I was pouring the stone. And then that tread just gave way and the stone completely collapsed inside the tire into the hole. So then I had this wonky mess that I couldn't do anything with once it dried. And it's sitting in my yard right now, unfortunately. But there have been stuff, things like that have happened that, just didn't like how it looked. Can't sell this to somebody. So that's happened a few times. Yeah.
Speaking of drying, like once you fashion a stone, how long does it take to dry and fully set to the point that it's usable?
So it depends on what kind of mix you're using. That definitely comes into play, in my opinion. I like to use one with rock and sand mixed in it. It doesn't take, at least here in Florida with the heat, it doesn't take as long as most people think. If I have maybe like a 330 and up, I'll give it 2 days in the mold. That's basically it. Everything under that, I usually really a 300, I probably give it 2 days too. But under that, I give it a day usually. Get it in, get it out. Then I let it sit in the sun outside of the mold for maybe a day or two. Let it really, really dry out. If it's paint, it's got to sit out for longer than that. Get as much moisture out of it as I can. And usually for acid too, I try to give it a few days out of the mold. But other than that, they don't need as much time as most people think they do. They're pretty quick.
And do you do a lot of shipping the stones, or is it mostly local people in Florida that are buying them?
So this is one of my biggest obstacles right now, is being primarily pickup only. So shipping prices, I have not been able to find anything that's even somewhat reasonable to ship these things out. I would love to ship them because I get messages weekly, multiple times a week, asking, hey, can you send this to California? I've had people from Spain, from Brazil, from all over, everywhere, asking me, hey, I'd like to buy a stone. How much would it cost to ship? And shipping quotes, I've had quotes inside Florida, like 2 hours from where I am, $600. And that was for a single 160-pound stone. And I have asked multiple different places. I don't know if I'm just not getting the right information or the right people, but I have definitely tried, to figure out how to ship these things for much cheaper to make it doable. But it's just not something that has manifested yet. So that's the biggest obstacle right now, is basically people have to come to me. Like, I will sometimes go part of the way or whatever I can. If it's close inside Florida, I will deliver, whatever we agree upon, me and the customer. But that's the biggest obstacle, is being primarily pickup only and not being able to ship these things for a reasonable price.
Yeah, I came upon that obstacle also as a consumer, looking at, one of the big name log makers that we all know. And the shipping was almost as much as the log itself. And, not his fault. It's just the shipping carriers. And they said, yeah, if you can go to the local airport and pick it up, they'd knock off a little bit or something like that. And
Right.
I can't fit that in my car. So I decided to just go into the woods, find a log myself. Yeah, it's taken me forever to make it, but that's the price you pay.
Yeah, it's something that I'm hoping at some point. I don't know if it's just maybe the big carriers. I need to find somebody that's a little bit smaller that can, work with me on getting that price cut. But at that point, like, for that amount of money for a single stone, I don't know how much I could cut off and even make it worthwhile for the customer to do. But yeah, that's something that hopefully I can figure out. But it's always such a cool thing when people drive down from, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. I've had so many different people from so many different states come down for my products, which is just it still blows my mind. I can't even believe that, people are willing to travel like that to pick this stuff up. But I definitely appreciate it. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And well, because I was going to say too, is that cost with shipping freight, or is that trying to ship USPS like general or something?
Yeah, that's freight. It's been I've tried the 3 big name carriers, and all of those prices have been for freight. And I haven't even priced really heavy stones. I've tried to price, a 160. I've priced a 115 before, a 215. I've priced a block. Nothing. I can't even imagine what it would be for, let's say like a 360 or a 400 or 440. Those prices were just for a single small stone. So it's pretty crazy what they're charging for, shipping these things.
I mean, on the plus side, you are creating a product that no one else is really creating. I mean, because like you look at any of these stones, and it's like, yeah, I've never seen Atlas stones like this before. So I mean, you are creating a unique, very personalized product that no one else is really offering. So in that regard, I think, yes, it does add a lot of value to the stone. But yeah, at the same time, if they have to pay $1,000 in shipping just to get it to them,
Right. And I like meeting everybody. I think that's one of the better parts of this whole thing is, when people come to pick up, being able to talk to them and, meet these people that are coming down. So, it's not to say that I don't like that, but, for some of these people that are so far away, it would be nice to be able to get them a stone without giving them a shipping quote of, $900 on top of what the stone price is. Because I mean, who's going to pay that much for one single item? It's just it's becomes undoable almost. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was gonna say, while we're on the topic, maybe do you want to give yourself a little shout out and mention some of your costs and all that, or is that a little bit too complex to go over on here?
Yeah, I mean, cost wise, everything is on my Instagram page on the pricing menu. But they range from, the really little one, the new one, the 8 inches, like 20 something pounds. That is, pretty cheap. I think it's like $20. A mid-sized stone will run you anywhere between $70 and $100, and then the larger ones that we offer will be around $150. The custom work, I'll be honest, I really don't even. I do upcharge a little bit for it, but I do not do that big of a price jump. And that's because, number one, I want to get these stones to as many people as I can. And number two, it's something that we've actually come to enjoy doing, me and my wife. I mean, I have never been like a creative outlet type of person. It's always been more of a physical type of thing with me. So when starting to do this and doing some of this creative stuff, it was actually something that I didn't even know that I needed. It was something that was really fulfilling to watch it, kind of grow and see things that I didn't think that I could do. So we like to do it, and I think it's a win-win when people get to do something that is not going to, take us too long of a time to do, and it's not really any extra money, that much money to do them. So the upcharge on the custom stuff is pretty minor. That's kind of where our pricing lies for most of that stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's the longest time a customization has taken you?
From start to finish, like from pouring the stone to being completely done with it?
Yeah.
Or from, the actual customization part?
Yeah, I meant just the customization, just the painting part.
I want to say about a week, and that one was because the weather was not hot at all. It was during the winter months, and the paint would just not dry to the point where I was comfortable moving on to that next step. If you don't let this stuff set, it will definitely peel. It'll bubble. You can't really do much with it until it is completely dry. So here in Florida, in the heat, that is not usually a problem. Paint will dry relatively quickly, depending on what type of paint I'm using for the job. But for that one in particular, it was just day after day after day. Don't feel comfortable with flipping this over yet, just because the paint wasn't dry. So that the paint ones are the ones that really kind of take a little bit longer. The acid ones are pretty quick. I can acid a stone and really be done with it in about a day. But the paint, because once you do one side, you have to roll it over, obviously, to do the other side. So it's sitting on something while that paint is, it's got to be completely dry before you take that next step. And then the sealer, I mean, it's got to be dry before you, seal the stone as well. So it's kind of a waiting game sometimes.
Yeah. So you talked earlier a little bit about not using deadlift as a gauge on how big of a stone to get. What is the correct gauge? Like how should someone who's never lifted an Atlas stone before, who like myself, who would like to maybe try one day, how should I properly gauge where to start?
So I think deadlift is a good gauge. I think that some people just don't know how to gauge it with their deadlift. I think they will say, okay, I can do X amount of weight. And then they automatically think, okay, I'm picking that weight up off of the ground. I can pick a stone up off of the ground that is the same or similar weight to what I can deadlift. So I think deadlift can still be a good gauge for that. I think it's just much less than what most people think that it is. I think most people need to start really probably with the first stone around like even 30 to 40%. just to kind of get a good gauge of what they can do. But definitely it's got to be on the lighter side of the deadlift usually.
Well, I think that translates over because you see a lot of these pro strongmen that have 1,000-pound deadlift and can't do a 500-pound stone. So I mean,
right,
there's some carryover, but it is a different movement.
Yeah, Isaac, it's interesting you bring that up because I just thought of a couple examples. Bobby Thompson, for example.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, he's not bad at Atlas stones, but he's not one of the top elite. But he is one of the top elite at deadlift. And then Maxime Boudreau, considered not a great deadlifter, probably the second best stone lifter in the world right now.
Yeah, I think you could even lump Tom Stoltman into that. I mean, look at what Tom can do with stones, and as impressive as his deadlift is, I don't think you would say that his deadlift is as impressive as his stone lifting ability. So I think it doesn't always translate that. I think a lot of times though, strong is strong. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But these younger guys, they think that they can do it all, and they think that just because they have a big deadlift, they can do a huge crazy stone. And it just doesn't usually work out like that. You have your freaks that it does, and they can, but for the most part, it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, I'll just go with half of my natural stone and order 100-pound Atlas stone and start there.
It wouldn't be a bad place to start. That'd probably be pretty good.
And if nothing else, at least they're usable. You know, if it's too light or something like that, then you do it for cardio. So
yeah, you pick it up and you bear hug it and you go for a walk. I mean, there's plenty of stuff you can do with a 100-pound stone. You can lap it and then explode and throw it over your shoulder. There's tons of stuff that you can do with the smaller stones that make them still, beneficial. So not bad to have.
Not at all. I like scaring the wildlife with it when I throw them around in the woods.
Yeah, you can scare the neighbors though. That's a whole different game. Yeah, get some neighbors out there and really scare those people. So
yeah, I use Isaac knows my stories. I use like what's all around me in the woods. So there was a fallen tree, and I said, "Oh, this is like sandbag toss over bar, right?" So I lined up stones of all different weights and kind of did a lineup of stones. I had to make sure nobody was coming, but it was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you got to make it fun, right? You can't just go out there and be miserable. You got to do stuff that you enjoy. So
absolutely.
Well, and that's kind of how strongman started, right? They were taking natural implements and stuff and then doing them in a circus. So you're halfway there, John. You're halfway to the circus.
Halfway to the circus. Yeah. I just have to convince all those deer and squirrels to join on in.
There you go.
The weirder, the better, right? That's yeah.
So what? So you said that you have stones at your house. I'm assuming you just have like 40 some stones laying around, or how does that work out?
So I have basically a 2-car garage that is entirely a gym. Literally, the only thing in there that's not a piece of gym equipment is my toolbox. Everything else in the 2-car garage is stuff that I've acquired since I started lifting. So I have, you could probably name it, I have it in there. But I do have my own run of stones. And I have from 115-pound stone all the way to my heaviest, which is 420. So I do have quite a bit of stones tucked away in the corner of the gym with my platform and all of that stuff. I have tons of sandbags, log, pretty much any type of bar you could imagine. I have plenty of machines, benches, rack. Pretty much a good amount of equipment in there. So
I wanted to ask you too, what do you do about cleaning stones? Because I know when I first was getting into strongman, one of my buddies, he bought a collection. It was like 20 some stones total from someone who was getting out of strongman, and it was everything. I think the lightest was 90 pounds and the heaviest was a 385, I think, something like that. But they had been heavily used and then sat in this guy's garage for 12 years or something. So when we got a hold of them, there was about a 1/4 inch of tacky and dust over top of everything. And we tried different cleaners, cleaning it off, and nothing was working. And we finally just got a grinder with like a flap wheel on it, basically, and just did that to pull everything off of it and then clean them from there. But I'm sure there's a better method of actually cleaning the stones. No?
Basically it. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to get a flap disc, get a grinder, and basically just take all that stuff off. I mean, once you get that stuff off, you can buff it to kind of, really smooth out the rest of that tacky that's still on there. But that is the best solution. I wouldn't even use really any cleaner or any type of spray or anything to dissolve it. That flap disc is going to be your best bet to get all that junk off.
Good to know that we were just going on a gut instinct, and so it's nice to hear that we actually went the correct route.
Yeah, you were right. That's the best way to do it for sure.
Nice. Is there any risk to damaging the seal or anything if you're doing that? Or, as long as you're not cutting into the stone, I guess.
Right. So, at that point, the tacky would basically be your new sealer. You could go as far as to getting as much of it off as you could and then maybe resealing it. What you don't want to do, obviously, is cut into that stone. That's not going to end well. Once you get past that top layer, you're going to have a lot of like sand and different stuff like that that's going to come into play. It's going to be probably gritty. So you definitely want to just kind of get as much of the junk off as you can. And then if you want to reseal it, you could, but the tacky layer will kind of be the new sealer, for the stone at that point.
Okay. Well, John, do you have any other questions? I've been talking for a little bit here. So you're muted at the moment, John.
Sorry. No other questions. I just have to correct something I said before. So the log I was going to order was $250 shipping. It wasn't the price of the log. I was thinking of another company, so not Slater. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, that's not even really that bad for a log.
Yeah.
And even for stones, that would be way more doable. But when you're looking at $600, $700, $800 plus, for a single stone, that's when it's just $250 for a log. That's not bad.
Yeah. So just wanted to correct that. Yeah, I think the log at the time, and of course material prices have gone up, but at the time, the log, it was going to be I think a 5-foot log, $869 with $250 shipping. I just looked up my old email.
Yeah, his logs are pretty incredible though. So
absolutely,
it's definitely worth the money.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what all the pros use.
Yeah, they do. Pretty much every competition, right? It's all Slater.
Yeah.
So. Have you looked into sponsoring stones for any strongman competitions or anything like that?
So I actually just did that for the first time. There was a competition in Mississippi, and I did free custom stone for the winner in each division, and I did free tacky for the winners as well. And then somebody that bought my stones, actually the stones were in the competition as well. So it was kind of a really cool thing to see the stones being used in a competition and being able to reward the winners with anything that they pick, any weight, any size, any customization, anything like that. So once they figure out, this was recent, very recent, once they figure out what they want to do, we'll go from there and we'll get it done. But I'd be willing, it was definitely a cool experience to see the logo plastered, all over the stuff. First time for that. And we're still pretty new, so all of this stuff is fairly new for us, but I would be willing to sponsor different competitions and stuff like that, just because of how cool it is to be involved on that level. So definitely something that we will hopefully be doing more of in the near future. Yeah.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So yeah, maybe just as we're kind of wrapping this up, so for anyone watching, please make sure you head over to Tampa Atlas Stones. Make sure you follow him. Aaron, do you have anyone that you want to give a shout out to before we close this up, or any sponsors of yourself that you want to give a shout out to?
Shout out to my wife. She is a huge help with this stuff. Couldn't do it without her. So that's pretty much the only person as far as, from a business side. And then thank you to anybody who follows the page, anybody who likes the stuff, comments, anybody who buys stones, anybody who shares the posts and things like that. It is very appreciated. We couldn't do any of this stuff without you guys. So just a huge thank you for everybody that's been so supportive for, this entire time so far.
Awesome. Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And yeah, we really appreciate going through this more in-depth dive into Atlas stones. I've played with them a little bit in the past, and I'm definitely no pro, but they are one of my one of the events that I enjoy a little bit more. So it's just kind of fun talking about them a little bit. So
yeah, I learned a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time someone's asked me to be on one of these things, so I'm very appreciative for that. It was fun.
There you go.
I had a good time chatting with you guys, so definitely thank you for having me on.
Hey, open door policy. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, I've seen your other guests too, like Magnus and all these guys that you've had on here, so definitely a big deal. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
one day we're gonna make it big, but we're slowly growing too. So we're in the same place that you are.
Strongman community is amazing in that way. Like, they all say yes pretty much. Like, we reach out and they're all so kind, strong men and strong women. I've told Isaac knows the story. Like, I fanboyed like crazy when I got Donna Moore on the channel. It was like, wow, she said yes, and she's so down to earth, normal person. It's amazing.
I think that's one of the biggest things is just putting yourself out there. And that's the hardest thing that I've learned, because that's not necessarily who I am. But the community that, of strongman, if you just ask, if you put yourself out there, if you whatever, they're very supportive. So it makes it easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So, well, like I said, thank you so much for joining us, and for everyone still watching, please have a wonderful night, great weekend. Go out there. I almost said go out there and be great, but I can't steal that from Shaw. So go out there and just have a good one, okay? We'll go with that.
Ciao, homie.
All right. Good night, everyone.